Before we start, I need you to understand one thing. Every person in these three stories swears they weren't dreaming, weren't drunk, and weren't imagining things. One of them had a dog as a witness. One of them had a security camera. And one of them had a smart speaker that started talking back on its own in the middle of the night. These are three true stories submitted by our viewers, all connected by one theme: sounds coming from somewhere in the house they lived in that should have been empty. By the end of this video, you're going to want to go check your own doors are locked. Let's get into story number 1. Story 1. The Voice in the Crawl Space. My name's Derek, and what happened to me took place in the house I grew up in back when I was 17. I should give you some background first because it matters. When I was 6, my dad was killed in a small plane crash. He flew as a hobby, and one trip he just never came home from. My mom was left to raise me alone, and it hit her hard, both emotionally and financially. She ended up leaning on her younger brother, my Uncle Marcus, a lot in those early years. Uncle Marcus basically became a second father to me. He'd come stay for stretches at a time while my mom worked double shifts to keep the house. He taught me how to ride a bike. He'd fix up my go-kart in the garage. Every single memory I have of a man teaching me anything as a kid, it was him. Real quick, if you're the kind of person who actually gets chills from stories like this, hit that subscribe button now, because trust me, story 3 is going to mess with you way more than this one. Okay, back to it. As I got older, my mom remarried, and Uncle Marcus started showing up less. By the time I was 15, he'd basically vanished from our lives completely. No calls, no visits, nothing. My mom would change the subject every time I brought him up, which I now realize should have told me everything. By 17, my mom's new husband had his own place, and the two of them were splitting time between houses, which meant I was often left alone in the house I grew up in. I didn't mind it. Any teenager would take that deal. The one constant in that house, besides me, was Biscuit, my mom's aging chocolate Labrador. Biscuit was 12, mostly deaf, and spent 90% of his life asleep. He was not, under any circumstances, a dog that reacted to things. Which is exactly why what happened next stuck with me. It was a Tuesday in November, close to midnight. I was already in bed when I heard Biscuit's nails clicking against the hardwood in the hallway. Unusual, since he almost never got up on his own overnight. I got up to check on him and found him standing dead still at the top of the basement stairs, staring down into the dark. His ears were up. His tail wasn't moving at all. I flipped the switch. The light at the bottom flickered once before catching. Biscuit didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just stared, like he was waiting for something to happen. I told myself it was nothing. Probably the furnace, maybe a mouse, and coaxed him back to my room. But every few minutes that dog would lift his head off the bed and stare at my closed door like he could hear something through the walls. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I went back out, Biscuit trailing close behind me this time instead of hanging back. We got to the basement door together, and this time when I looked down, he pressed himself right against my leg. I called out, feeling stupid even as the words left my mouth. "Anyone down there?" Nothing. I started down the stairs, the old wood groaning under every step, and about halfway down, right where the ceiling drops low enough that you finally get a full view of the basement, I heard it. A voice. Weak, strained, like someone in pain, and it said my name. It was Uncle Marcus's voice. I hadn't heard it in almost 2 years, but there was no mistaking it. If you're new here, this channel is basically dedicated to stories exactly like this one. So if this is doing anything for you right now, drop a comment telling me which part gave you chills. I read every single one. I don't remember deciding to move. My body just took over. I hit the bottom of the stairs and swept the whole basement. Behind the couch, behind the old entertainment center, nobody. Biscuit refused to come past the third step. He just stood there, watching me. The only place left unchecked was the utility closet in the back corner. As I got close, I swear I heard the faintest shuffle of movement from inside it. That's when something primal kicked in, and I sprinted back up those stairs 2 at a time, barely got the door shut behind me, and locked myself in my room with a suddenly very alert Biscuit. I called my mom, whisper yelling into the phone that someone was in the basement, that it sounded exactly like Uncle Marcus, that even the dog heard it. She went quiet in a way that scared me more than anything I'd heard downstairs. Then she told me the truth. Uncle Marcus had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 3 years earlier and had passed away. She'd never told me because she thought I'd already lost enough. She'd let me believe he'd simply drifted away instead. Before I could even process that, she cut me off. If someone is actually in that basement right now, hang up and call 911. So I did. Police arrived within 15 minutes, and I walked them through everything, where I heard the noise, what I checked, and the one closet I hadn't opened. When they opened it, there was nothing inside but a water heater and some old paint cans. They cleared the entire house, floor by floor. Nothing. No one. They left, clearly assuming I'd worked myself into a scare over nothing. But Biscuit wouldn't go anywhere near that basement door again for the rest of the time we lived in that house. And a dog that barely reacted to a thunderstorm doesn't suddenly develop a fear of a staircase for no reason. We sold that house about 8 months later. Story 2. The apartment above the empty floor. This one comes from a viewer named Ashley, who was 23 at the time and renting the top floor of a converted 2-story home. Her unit was small, 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, and a living room that overlooked the backyard. The bottom floor of the house was supposed to be under renovation, completely gutted and unused, and the landlord lived nearly 3 hours away, meaning she rarely saw him and mostly interacted with him through texts. For the first month, everything was quiet. Then, around 1 a.m. one random Thursday, she heard a single, heavy footstep from directly below her bedroom. She froze, waiting for a second one. It came a few seconds later, then another. It didn't sound like the house settling. It sounded like actual weight pressing into a floor that shouldn't have had anyone standing on it. She told herself it had to be an explanation. It always is, right up until it isn't. The next morning, she checked the downstairs unit on her way to work. Locked, empty, dusty, exactly as it should be. She felt embarrassed for even worrying about it. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same pattern. A few footsteps, silence. A few more, lasting almost 2 full minutes. She muted the TV and stood in the middle of her living room, just listening straight down through the floor, trying to convince herself it was pipes or an animal that had gotten in somehow. Deep down, she already knew it sounded human. Over the following 2 weeks, the noises escalated. Footsteps most nights, but one time it was unmistakably a cabinet door closing. That's when she finally called her landlord. He brushed it off, told her old houses make strange noises, and said she could call the police if it made her feel better, though he didn't think there was anything to worry about. That response, she said, scared her more than the noise itself, because now she felt like if something actually was wrong, she was completely on her own. One Friday, she got home close to 2 a.m. and immediately felt like something in the apartment was different, even though nothing looked out of place. She stood still, listening. Silence. Then a loud thud from directly below her. She backed out of her own apartment, got in her car, and called the police from the driveway. Officers searched the entire downstairs and the perimeter of the house. Nothing. No forced entry, no sign of anyone. By the way, if you've made it this far into the video, do me a favor and smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are into stories exactly like this. In the days after, small details started piling up. She came home once to find the downstairs door open by an inch, a door she was certain she'd shut herself after the police left. Another time, she caught the smell of cigarette smoke drifting from the side of the house near one of the ground floor windows, despite the fact that neither she nor any of her neighbors smoked. Then, one night, the footsteps stopped directly beneath her bedroom. She lay frozen, listening, and after several long seconds, heard 3 light taps against the ceiling below her. Deliberate, evenly spaced, not settling, not pipes. Taps. She left that night without even changing out of her pajamas and stayed with a friend. The next day, she went back with backup to search the place thoroughly. In the downstairs kitchen, her friend crouched by a low cabinet and went quiet. Wedged behind the toe kick, almost invisible unless you were looking directly at it, was a cigarette butt. Fresh. Someone had been living down there. She called the landlord immediately, and this time he actually drove out to check. He found a rear window with a broken latch, closed enough to look secure but easily forced open from the outside by anyone thin enough to fit through. That evening, while grabbing the last of her things, she heard something new come from the first-floor hallway. A single, unmistakable cough. She grabbed her bag and left everything else behind. When police returned that night, they finally found real evidence: disturbed dirt on the windowsill, and an unfamiliar blanket folded inside a downstairs closet. She moved out that weekend and never went back, not even to grab the rest of her belongings. Story 3. The Smart Speaker. This last one comes from a guy named Julian, who was 22 and living in the upper unit of a 2-family home his parents owned. His older brother Nathan lived in the fully separate unit downstairs, and the 2 floors were connected by an interior door that stayed locked most of the time. One week, Nathan flew out to Costa Rica with his girlfriend, leaving the downstairs completely empty. Julian had the whole place to himself. The night in question started completely normal. Dinner, some TV, nothing unusual. Around the time he was cleaning up, he heard a single, dull thud from somewhere downstairs. He assumed something had fallen over and did a quick walkthrough of Nathan's empty unit just to be safe. Everything was in place. He went back upstairs, finished his night, and eventually went to bed. He was almost asleep when music suddenly blasted from his smart speaker in the kitchen. Some kind of slow, droning instrumental track he didn't recognize, playing loud enough to jolt him fully awake. He figured it was just a glitch. He was wrong. He yelled for it to stop, and it cut off instantly. He climbed back into bed, chalking it up to some kind of software hiccup. A few minutes later, right as he was drifting off again, the speaker spoke on its own. "Sorry, I didn't catch that." He got up, walked over, and unplugged the thing completely from the wall. No power, no way it could be doing anything on its own. He went back to bed feeling confident that was the end of it. He wasn't sure how much time had passed when the music started blasting again, the exact same song. He shot up in bed because he distinctly remembered pulling that cord himself. He walked to the kitchen slower this time, dread building with every step, said the command to stop it, and the music cut off immediately. Then he looked at the outlet. The speaker was plugged back in. He stood there for a long moment, absolutely certain he hadn't touched that plug again. He texted Nathan, asking if he'd somehow flown back early and was messing with him, and mid-text noticed his brother's location was still showing as Costa Rica. He dragged a chair to his bedroom door and sat there listening for almost 10 minutes. Total silence. Then, from out in the living room, he heard a whisper. Not loud, but perfectly clear. A voice giving the speaker a command. His body went numb. Before he could even process it, the speaker responded, and the music started blasting again, louder than before. He grabbed his phone and called 911, yelling into the phone that someone was in the house, telling whoever it was to get out, while the operator tried to calm him down. He couldn't hear anything over the music, had no idea if the person was still there or already gone. When the song ended, he shouted the stop command one more time from inside his locked room. And it worked. Police arrived a few minutes later. They cleared the entire house, both floors, and found no one. But when they checked the front door, it was standing wide open. A door he knew for a fact had been locked that night. The next day, he couldn't shake the thought that someone might have been staying in his brother's empty unit and had simply come upstairs to mess with him. Or worse. He stayed at a friend's place until Nathan got back 2 days later. Together, they searched the entire house again and found nothing obviously missing, though nothing about that made either of them feel better. The first thing they did was install cameras on every entrance. Nothing like it ever happened again. Their parents ended up renting the house out to someone else not long after. Julian says he was relieved to leave, because once something like that happens in a place, it never quite feels the same again. 3 different houses, 3 different decades of life, but the same pattern every single time. A sound that shouldn't exist, coming from somewhere that should have been empty. What ties all 3 of these together isn't just fear. It's how each person tried to explain it away first. The dog is just reacting to a mouse. It's just the pipes. It's just a glitch. Right up until the moment they couldn't explain it away anymore. If one of these got under your skin, let me know in the comments which story you'd never want to live through yourself. And if you want more true stories like these delivered straight to you, make sure you're subscribed, because we post new ones all the time. And trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. Stay safe, lock your doors, and I'll see you in the next